Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, August 13th meeting of the Plainview City Council meeting. I'll be conducting the meeting this evening in the mayor's absence. Roll call, Bob, Julie, myself, Pam, all present except for the mayor. Would you, Open Meetings Act on the back wall, and would you please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brian, if I might address a couple of things real quickly for the agenda. Those that are here for the gap paving, nothing's going to be done tonight. I'm trying to save you some daylight summer hours. There was the discussion that was had about the asphalt, getting comparisons. I did get the comparisons. It was a difference between 1.3 million overall to 1.1 something million. So there is very little change, which I was already aware of, that the asphalt. But I'm glad, Lisa, you brought it up for me to check out. But the engineer came back. It was a little bit under, but not much. So it's not going to be the savings that you would have hoped it would have been there overall, because it takes almost as much to do a asphalt overlay right now from the beginning, especially since they're all dirt. So that's one thing just keep in mind. Nothing's going to be done right now with the gap paving as far as discussion, other than maybe talking a little bit about the hospital, and the hospital road, that one road between Mr. Hart and the hospital. Thanks. And the other one probably between the school ball fields. None of the other ones are even going to be discussed. So they're off the table for now. And we're not anywhere near bonding or anything like that, so I'm trying to help save you a little bit of time. Be with your children or things like that. But if you'd like to remain, we certainly have some other agenda items that are very important as well. There was the other thing, just Bruce, you want to address the last one, so if anybody's here, the last one right now?
Sure. If anyone is here on the question of possible executive session disciplinary action, number 18, it's our understanding that the mayor is not going to attend tonight, and he may, this is up to him, but this is what we've been told, he may be intending to resign. That remains to be seen. But in any event, he's not here today. And the other aspect of that is anything that is done with any police discipline, there has to be a written letter given to the officer outlining the questions and any problems and giving them an opportunity to respond at a hearing. And that hasn't been done yet. So really nothing can occur on that item. And if there's anything to be done about it, there has to be a letter issued to the officer and a hearing set up. So there, especially with the mayor being absent and maybe having to work on restructuring here, there won't be any action on number 18 tonight. It'll be tabled.
Is it being tabled because the mayor isn't here, or is it being tabled because it's smaller?
Well, there hasn't been a letter yet either. I guess I would say yes. Both reasons.
But you couldn't have this
You
without a
could
letter,
not
right?
do it anyway because there hasn't been a letter.
No, and number 5,
Right.
please disregard that.
Right. Okay, approval of minutes from previous meeting or meetings, through the one regular and one special.
I'll make a motion to approve both the special meeting held on Tuesday, July 30th, as well as the regular meeting on Tuesday, July.
Second?
I'll second.
Pam? Myself, Julie?
Aye.
Bob? Claims and payroll?
I had 2 questions that I emailed everybody back on, so didn't have any other ones. Unless I cleaned up.
I'll make a motion to approve claims and payroll.
Second, Bob? Pam?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Myself, police chief.
Any questions over the numbers for this one?
What, a lot higher than last one.
That's the only thing I was thinking of also. Thank you very much. Economic development, Susan?
Alright, just gonna gloss over a few things real quick. I apologize, but your report and, these attachments, are in your boxes today. On our housing trust fund, our official status, this is the fourplex that we wanna build, is on hold. They awarded, of the 80 applications, Nebraska received, they awarded 7, and they put the rest of us on hold because they took $3 million out of that fund for disaster housing relief. So they're waiting to see what happens there. Some of that money may be funneled back in, and then, so we may possibly still be funded. I have an appointment with the housing director for DD in 3 weeks with NENAD, and we're gonna look at our application and see where we scored, where we fall on all these applications. And hopefully, we're high enough that we can hope for something in the fall. So the next award announcement will be, we're hoping, on September. On the downtown revitalization study, you have, some of you have a survey, but we polled all of the downtown business owners and we got 20 back. And so I included the results for your review. This will also, the entire report, be in your inbox. But we got some really good data. The reason for this was we didn't have the support of our downtown business owners. There wouldn't really be any reason to move forward with the downtown revitalization.
I asked you a quick question.
Yeah.
You said you got 20 back, how many did you send out?
27?
Good percentage.
Yeah. So, you know, it was kind of interesting to look at some of the information that came back. 70% of the downtown business people feel that the appearance of downtown is fair. 5% feel it's good. 25% feel it's poor. 70% of them feel that the streets need improvement. 65% feel that the sidewalks need some improvement. The majority of them, 55%, are not concerned about the ADA eligibility of their buildings. 65% would like to make facade improvements. 100% of them believe that there is a need for some downtown planning and improvement, and 100% of them believe that they would support the revitalization grant application to fund a project. When we ask them, you know, to list the projects, 75% would do facade, 50% would do signs, 35% would do upper level housing, 25% would include a public green space, 65% are looking at infrastructure improvements, and 55% looking at building code, bringing things up to code. 80% are interested in the grant, or using grant funds, and then in question 11, they kind of break out, you know, windows, sign, awnings, brick, and tucking, how they would break those things out. The code improvements that they would do, and then there's a few, when we ask them if they have a significant minor or major repair, minor repair being under 10,000, 31% said they would have a minor repair, 15% said they have a significant repair of 10 to 25,000, but 42% said they have a major repair over 25,000. They feel, one of the questions was, how do you see your business benefiting from us going through this process? 65% felt that they would have increased sales. Some believe they would have more job creation, more foot traffic, increasable usable space. So, and then there's some open-ended comments from them as well. So you'll get that in your email. But overall, really good information. Does support what we're trying to do. So the next step is to apply for phase 1, $50,000 planning grant with NENAD. What that money will do, it allows us to bring in a firm attorney who will assess our downtown, meet with each building owner, help them develop a look or a plan for their building, depending on what they want to do. They have historic architecture long-term strategic planning for the downtown, work with business owners on that. And then once we get phase one done, that plan takes about a year. We apply for the $400,000 lot grant to actually go do the work. Community building, talked about this one a lot in the past, kind of tabled it once the flood happened. Just because it wasn't, and then we kind of moved into the fourplex, and now we're back to it. So Miller Associates did a really good job working with the steering committee. They created these boards. That's the interior, this is your site, and this is what it will actually look like when it's done. You'll notice a lot of windows, yeah. So, have that. I'll be pulling the steering committee back together and kind of figure out where they want to go from here. Capital campaign, who's gonna own it, how are we gonna fund it?
And we still don't have this, we have sites narrowed down
The lot is that empty lot on Highway 20.
where the trailer court was.
Yep. So, that's all the community can put all together, working hard.
You wanna pass it?
Yeah. So these are, if you guys wanna look at it, community, you're more than welcome. And then, our IRP, I did contact USP, let them know that we were gonna decline. They are gonna send a de-obligation letter to the city. They said, rejecting the funds is a lot easier than getting them. It's just a simple signature from my reporting and send it back. So, that won't be too bad. The next thing that you'll see that I brought is a market survey. This survey was created to help our business owners identify local shopping habits, improve customer sales. It asks a variety of questions in order to determine optimal shopping hours, days of the week, where locals purchase certain items, what barriers exist for the consumers in Plainview. And we'll get a copy of this in the email as well, but a couple of you have a hard copy up there. So some of these I kind of already knew, but maybe it helps business owners to see it in black and white.
Will this be provided to business owners who?
Yes, at the chamber meeting, and then we'll email it out to you. But first question was about an online marketplace website, and this was kind of surprising. 52% of people put it as a moderate priority, 17.5% said high. So a need for having some kind of website to market our area seems to be important to people. One of the things we asked was, where are you likely to purchase the following products? And we list a number of categories. And we're seeing that Norfolk, obviously, is clear winner in a lot of these categories, except for when it comes to service businesses. Our insurance, 75% is bought local, 92% of people pay local, 92% of people buy their gas and fuel local. So our service businesses seem to have quite a bit of loyalty. When it comes to groceries, only 69% buy local, office supplies 26%. So some things that we really maybe already knew. So we know people go to Norfolk, but we want to know why, and what can we do to make it different. So we start looking at some of the factors. What time of day do you typically shop? We look at most of our businesses, they're open from 8 to 4 or 8 to 5. Well, there's only 2.3% of the people that responded to the survey shopping between 7 and 9, and 19% between 9 and 11, 2% between 11 and 1, and 20% between 1 and 5. The overwhelming majority, almost 60%, are shopping at Norfolk in our businesses. Days of the week, when do you do most of your shopping? 70% of the people are shopping on Saturday, 58% are shopping on a Friday, 30, almost 40% shopping on a Sunday. Historically, most of our businesses are closed on those days. When I asked, do you live or do you work outside of Plainview, the actual overwhelming response to the survey is 15% no. And that was surprising to me. I thought we had more of a commuter population, and it's really hard to kind of get back and get something 4 or 5 or 6 when a business closes. But this is coming from mostly local people. The questions about barriers that apply are here, and then we have 2 pages of recommended comments, which is some pretty good feedback, constructive feedback for our business owners. So, does it mean that you adjust your shopping hours? Do you offer an open late, one day a week, maybe a Thursday you're open until 9? Do you switch it up on your weekends? Maybe you're not open on Monday because 11% of people shop on Monday. Do you perhaps shop, open up fully on a Saturday or have more hours on a Sunday? So all this information goes back to the business chamber, our chamber members. to see if we can start the conversation about how do we adjust the marketing to adapt to what our consumers need. If you want them to buy local, because currently the way we're set up, you're actually pushing them to not. So. That's all I got. There's more of these will be emailed to us. Everything and then the full report. I just kind of glossed over for you guys tonight, so we'll move on.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. I'll leave these here if anyone wants to pass these around, I guess.
Hey,
How's it going?
thanks for fixing the fire hydrant, or replacing the fire hydrant.
We're continuing working on the gravel road, we got a couple of them done, we're starting to make everything drain, curb stops, fixing them as needed. Pool closed Sunday. I'll be, I don't like to say it, winterizing it shortly.
Removing the shades you bought?
What's that?
We're taking down the shades back when we leave them up, the ones we just bought.
Guy told me that you don't want to take it down. Don't want it.
I thought that was a whole conversation to take them down.
It was.
I was just clarifying.
He said they've never taken them down. Well, the last one wasn't taken down in
Since it was built right.
15 years. I think it was. House south of the shop, lot looks good now. Yeah, I put a hydrant in. Got the water leak in front of the cop shop. That was a little struggle. We had to get municipal in to the line stop because we couldn't get the west side shut down.
There's one in front of the hotel, we get replaced there too.
And it's on the list. Park help is pretty much done. Kenny was done Friday.
Yep.
So, and Bill Dane is quitting us, so. I don't know a lot about it. We'll be gone in, I would assume, a month or so, probably a month.
Now, we'll be looking at a couple different things. One, we're gonna see if the situation requires budget times up, so we can evaluate the numbers we need and how we can proceed forward. And bring it back to you. I'll probably include something in the budget, but I don't know what that means, full-time, part-time. And then replace it.
That's all I got.
You didn't take credit for helping in the cemetery with your big. Even the hydraulic jackhammer. Those kinds of things that most people don't know about. Thank you very much.
He didn't want to be known as a grave digger.
No.
Yeah, we got Randy Helbush, he'll be doing a presentation on the big cities. I think he's going up quick, or do you want to?
Thank you.
Two parts to my report, and I'll give part of it a little bit later on. The first part of the report is an apology to the council in some ways, and I'm not taking full credit or responsibility, but I think that with the council, I've been through this last 2 weeks things that I haven't been through in a long, long time. And, quite frankly, somewhat disappointed in a lot of people. But what I'm trying to say is I'm sorry to the council that maybe as a council a little bit more better mentoring session and things. We should try to look at preventive stuff. I'm not an elected official, so I can say these things and get by with it a little bit more. So what happened in transport prior to tonight is not good. It'll come out a little bit later, but I don't think everyone should be just sitting there wondering what the heck is going on. I never thought we'd be a Crofton or anybody else, but if the mayor does decide to go through the resignation, it's certainly his right. I know the municipal rules as well as anyone. Bruce and I probably know most all the inner workings of the codes and everything else. You gotta move forward. We gotta move and do a lot of things. I've got a lot of things on my plate and on my agenda. Randy's just one of them. So, I mean, discussing water rates, I'm sure is gonna be friendly enough after everything. Gap paving was another discussion. It's, and I think what I said, I want to just bring out and then stop and do it later, is that everything that I try to do is in the best interest of the city. I can't prevent some things from happening that I wished I could and start all over again. They are what they are. The legal process is the legal process, and you have to abide by it no matter what. I don't have to like it. I don't have to like the way it's going. It'd be nice if everything was just in Pleasantville and we didn't have to worry about things. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to go and roll through the punches. You'll probably hear a lot more coming out in the paper, I hope not, before you hear it from personally. But I've spoken to each one of the council people now, individually, except with the exception of Pam, and we got to go forward. We got a lot of things to do. I mean, this town's got a lot of work to do, and if it includes paving, oh well, it includes paving. And it may not be the gap paving of yours, and we won't pick on people back here, but if it means to go forward, I'll go forward, because that's what I'm being paid to do, is to take care of this town. And I get kind of tired of apologizing for it once in a while, because it may step on somebody's toes. This is what you hired an administrator for. I'm not going to change the way I do things, and I'll certainly try to keep the best interests of the city in mind as we go forward. So I'll bring up anything on the report. But with that, sorry, Randy, you had to have a tough act to follow.
That's no problem.
Randy's coming up, and by the way, those that don't know Randy, he's with Nebraska Rural Water, but I will tell you this, Randy is a lot more than just with Nebraska Rural Water. He's a friend to Plainview, has always had our best interests in mind, knows the water system here as well as anyone, and will absolutely, I trust everything he says to a certain degree.
There you go. I'm glad you clarified that. Well, first I always try to start these water rate discussions off with just don't shoot the messenger. I kind of save myself here, but this is just about anymore all I do. I mean, we do a myriad of things. Kurt knows, leak detection, line location, valves, pressure tests. I mean, we have tools to do all that, but we get asked for by our members. We have 493 communities in Nebraska that are members. Is rates. I did one yesterday in Murray, Nebraska. I did one this morning in the little village of Fordyce. Headed down to the village of Hubble. Headed on to Kansas tomorrow to do another one. I mean, it's just, so you're not alone, I guess, is what I'm trying to get across there. I think everybody's got a copy that looks something like this. We'll start on the water side. Both sheets look basically the same other than the name water and sewer on them. But when we do these, with small utilities, your expenses vary year to year. You're gonna have years with bigger expenses, more main breaks, maybe put in more fire hydrants, whatever, this or that. And on the other side with the revenue, you're gonna have wetter years, drier years. Your revenue's gonna change a little bit. So we try to go back like 3 years and get a pretty good average. And that's kind of what we try to base our rate on. Keeping in mind, we're basically looking back 3 years, not forward 3 years, and nothing's gonna get any cheaper. Okay, so that just keeping that in mind. Now what we've got here is the last 3 years. I think that's off your profit loss statements, I believe, Courtney. And included in the real ones, or in our original report, there was about $50,000 a year in depreciation, and I think $150,000 in transfer. And we took those out. And on the sewer side, they didn't get omitted, and I'll show you that. But it's something that the citizens basically couldn't afford to fund. I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. We got to live in the real world. We want to keep this thing sustainable. We want to keep it going. We want to have enough money to put in a new fire hydrant, repair the curb stops, all those kinds of things. But yet, that kind of depreciation in a water system that if you really look at it in its age, it's probably depreciated out. And some things, you just, when it gets to the point we need 10 blocks of new main, or 2 new wells, or a new water tower, I mean, sometimes you just got to go to a bank. It's going to take a bond or a grant or something like that. So realistically, we can't fund enough depreciation to never never have to pay or go get a loan or a bond or a grant to replace that. So, having said that, with these three sheets, we took those two items out, and then on the far right there is the average. And one thing I did add, we took out all the depreciation, but we try to impress, if we're just bringing in exactly what we need to fund the last 3 years, we're basically kicking the can down the road, because there are gonna be a few more expenses, as things go on. So we recommend, and that's kind of to the bottom line there, just above the total, is a 15% what we call asset replacement fund. It's really not a depreciation, but it's to help with smaller items, a $5,000 or $10,000 item here or there, if we can put that away. And that 15%, amounts to $28,000 as opposed to the depreciation we were funding. So if you look down there, at the very bottom right-hand corner, it shows that over the last 3 years, we're showing about a $20,000 a year loss. And that $20,000 a year loss does not include that $28,000 for asset replacement. That's bare bones cost one. If you add that $28,000 in, you're getting close to 50 is where we're short. Any questions or anything on any of that? At any time, just stop me. Sometimes I get to rambling a little quick. I know what I've done here because I've done it, but I forget other people haven't seen it like I have. So the next sheet, if you look at it, here is,
Hey Randy.
yes, sir.
Real quick, you're saying you're recommending the city builds in 28,000
Yes,
on their budget?
It'll be more than that.
yeah, that's what we recommend, just, 28,000 and,
What Randy did, if you look at it, I don't have it in front
Do
of
you
me.
have
I
an
want-
extra copy?
What's that?
Do you have an extra copy?
I do not have with me, but,
You can get one.
Courtney's got it on her computer, she can print you out one, you bet.
One of the things to keep in mind for the council, I don't have it in front of me, but I've memorized it completely. Sorry about that, Randy.
No, go ahead, absolutely.
If you look at the average, though, you're looking at an average over 15, 16, 16, 17, and 17, 18. You'll remember that 17, 18, we reallocated and adjusted costs into the 18, 19 year that were based on the electrical system going away. So you're gonna see some higher, if you look at it, you'll see some higher salary costs, because we had to take some of those salaries and put them into water and sewer then to make it be more appropriate. So actually what you're gonna look at a little bit more when we talk about the budget is the last column and then increasing from there rather than so much on the average. The average is a great number and I'm using it to take a look at, but I'm not gonna base on increasing from the average as much as I am increasing from 17, 18, 18, 19. So, if that makes sense, you should see it right in the salary cost. I mean, the
Well,
salary
in
cost.
17, 18, it already shows up a little
Why
bit
did
there.
17, 18 double? I was digging for a copy there. That's so much higher?
And the reason is we took the, some of the people away
The
from.
auditor pulled some stuff and put it in the water essentially,
Uh,
or? He did.
Both, I was trying to sit there, I mean, basically, which one of our departments was the most healthy?
Yes, I mean, just fairly allocating it to water.
Right, and I may have to back off some, but then I'll have to look at something
The
else.
salaries didn't double.
Nope, no.
They just got reallocated.
Absorbing more staff.
I think we absorbed Melissa into the sewer, she didn't like it. but,
Fairly.
Any other questions or anything?
That profit loss is pretty valuable, it seems like.
Very good word, my word of the day, malleable.
So on that next sheet, that top box is your current rate. We're at $11.24 per month plus $1.34 for the first 1,000, then $1.57 after that. And over the last 3 years, now last year was kind of a wet year. We didn't sell so much water. The year before we sold like 182,000. Last year was down to 158. That's what I said. Water, varies. So you try to get an average. And this is the last 3 years' average. Brings in 170,000. But if we want to get to where we need for our last 3 years' average, we're right at 220,000 as opposed to the 170. And that's to meet the last 3 years' average. And like once again, and that took out the transfer and it's taken out the depreciation. Keep that in mind. This is running the water system only. The 1124, would go to $15, and the $1.34 would go to $1.70, and the $1.57 to $2. And that would bring in right at $222,000 on an average year. Now, I think, did I email you, Michael or Courtney, a sample ordinance where you do a 3-year rate?
I don't know if you sent that
I
to
don't
me or not.
remember you sending that.
I thought I sent that, another attachment along with this. If not, I'll get it to you. It's very, what I have is very generic. But we also, you know, like Mike said, we gotta be able to keep up with cost. So we're looking back the last 3 years, like we stated. In my opinion, that would need to be step one. And then the next 2 years, I would recommend a 2% increase, where the 15 would go to $15.30, very minimal, but it does bring us in, you know, another $6,000, $7,000. And then in the third year, it would go to $15.60, and from $1.70 to $1.75, and then to $1.80, just to keep up with basically inflation. And I would like to do these 3-year steps, and it could be done in one motion of the council, that on this anniversary date, whatever date you choose, it automatically kicks in. The rate would change on those dates. And in 3 years, we sit down and take another look, and see how do we do.
The water rate is so dependent on weather conditions, you asked. What do you think this year? I budgeted for 180, and I wouldn't exactly say we've had a dry season since March, and because of that, you know, we may be as a city lucky to bring in 155.
We're running into a lot of that this year. Revenues so far are really down.
Which is good for your pocketbook. I mean, that's good. You can water your lawns without.
Now, and also, I think just the biggest thing is the weather. But another thing is people are becoming more conservation minded. And then dishwashers use less water. We've got a washing machine at home that I'd give them $1,000, take it back and bring back my old one. I hate the thing. It takes like a cup of water to try to wash a whole load of clothes, and it don't work. But anyhow, is there any questions or anything on that? Anybody have any comments? And I'll definitely make sure you get that copy of that ordinance. I'll email that to you. And I also did I leave with you or send you a study of the rates of towns your size?
Yes.
You do have that, don't you, Michael? I thought.
Yeah. The rates in that, in general, just for the public here, he's talking about $15, and across the state, you'd be lucky to sit there and be at 20, 25, and some are 37, 38, 39. Those that are around Creighton area, you know Creighton's water rate, different situation, but you know what their water rate is. And so I think it'd be fairly safe to say that Randy's trying to be conservative and looking at $15. It's certainly well within reason.
But another thing I just mentioned real quick, doing a 3-year ordinance and trying to keep going up a little bit a year, it's a lot easier for the public to budget for, and it's a lot more palatable to the public. Everything, you know, you're used to small increases ever so often in your electricity, your cell phones, your, you know, whatever the case may be. It's just more palatable to the public and easier for them to budget. No other questions on the water side? We'll take a look at the sewer, and the sewer, from what I've got here and what I did, is not in bad shape at all, but visiting with Curtis, that there's going to be some expense in the future with the lagoon and things like that aren't taken into account here. So I want everybody to be aware of that. This is where we're at today, okay? And basically it's the same philosophy. We did the same thing, only for some reason my profit loss column down there at the bottom did not change when I took out the depreciation and the transfer. So it's showing in 2017-18 we actually had a $201,000 loss. And that's a big reason to come out. That's something we can't expect the public to pick that up. So just kind of ignore that very bottom box where everything's in parentheses from 6,000 to 200,000. But our average what we need on the bottom column there, and once again, added in a 15% asset replacement, small part asset replacement fund, is right at 178,000. And if you go to the next page, that current box shows our current sewer rate of $15.73 a month for residents, $22.46 for commercial, and $1.69 per thousand based on winter usage. Sewer rates are a little easier to adjust. People have to use so much water in the wintertime to shower, to wash clothes, to wash dishes. It's kind of a given. And I'm sure Courtney can relate to this, but most sewer bills are about the same. People 3,000 or 4,000 gallons, you have to. So they don't vary so much year to year. In the summertime, a lot of people use water because they want to, they have to, but you've got to use so much in the wintertime for sewer. But we're at 176,000 with our current rate, and we really need to be around 179. And so what I've suggested, and once again, this would be like a 3-year ordinance, that to meet the 3-year average with a 15% asset replacement and no depreciation or transfers, it would go from 1573 to 1605. It's about a 28% per month jump. Not very much, and 3 cents a thousand. So it doesn't take a whole lot to do that. And then once again, the next 2 years go up at a 2% increase, brings us in about another $4,000 or $5,000 a year. And kind of just keep up with inflation and rising costs. At the end of year 3, we've only went up about $1 a month and 11 cents per thousand gallons. It's not a big increase, but yet it'll help keep us by. And I think Michael, you got the same thing on sewer, or did I leave you a sewer?
Gave me both.
I thought I did, okay. If not, I'll get it to you. So any questions or comments or anything on any of that? You must have did a fairly good job of explaining it. I hope so, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to give me a phone.
For the council that's not aware, Nebraska Rural Water, we work with them extensively. We give them a donation each year. It's not even a price tag that will go in. We try to be somewhat generous. I hope generous enough to pay their own bill. They're always out there. These rate studies they do, they're free. I mean, we're used to rate studies being 10 grand, 5 grand, whatever the case, what we're going after. So we appreciate Nebraska Rural Water actually doing this for us and doing it periodically so that we can stay in line. But that's how they fund themselves, and that's how we appreciate, and they help us on all sorts of issues. Smoking, when I mean smoking, the lines.
So smoke testing sewer lines.
Yes. So they do a lot of different things besides rate studies.
And all the money, the donations, that all goes into an equipment fund. So we can buy sewer smokers, and laptop computers and stuff like that. None of that goes into my pocket or any of the staff's pocket or anything. So all sent straight to an equipment fund, and it's helped us get a lot of equipment. I've used the hydraulic valve exerciser. That's a great tool. And that's like a $40,000 piece of equipment that very few small communities can afford. With the donations, everybody shared it, and it worked out great.
Thank you for all you do.
Well, you bet, and thank you folks for having me. Like I said, if there's anything else, give us a shout. You bet, enjoy the rest of your meeting.
Thanks.
Take care. You bet.
Discussion action updates to water meter system.
I don't know if we have a lot, it'll be probably discussing, we want to keep this always on here, but this is part of this water rate study too, because we talked about water meters, no surprise for the last 6 to 8 months, and we have to replace water meters as we go, so it'll be in the budget, and it'll be according to what his rates, which he didn't include, he was trying to keep the status quo.
Right.
So when I say more, it may be a little bit more on different ends, it may be on the base price, it might be on the per 1,000 gallons. I mean, because we're awfully cheap on anything above, 5,000 gallons or 1,000 gallons, we start to register. But anything above a certain level, we pay $1 something, and that's just. We're very generous. Water rates are good here, and I'd like to keep it that way, but we also got to pay for the water system. So.
His projection didn't involve the meters?
No, It did not.
Number 8, discussion year-end report ball backers. That's Blake.
It's me.
Hi. Welcome, thank you. Perfect time.
Ball backers had a pretty productive year this year. Lots of improvements at the ball field, new concession stand, siding, shingles, roof was falling in, the whole thing, but we're in pretty good shape there now. New shed for equipment. Had a couple good turnouts for tournaments, brought a lot of people to town. Town days, we had 16 teams, and we hosted a couple league tournaments, had another 17, 18 teams there. What was it, end of June? So, good year. Soccer's come under ball backers just this year for the first year. Had a lot of problems, didn't have a lot of problems yet, but getting expensive for 3 or 4 different clubs to carry insurance on that property up there, so to bring it all under one roof now should help. Football starting up, got I think 34, 35 kids playing youth football, ages grades 4 through 6. Baseball this year we had 146 kids, ages 4 through 19. So that's a strong program, which is only getting stronger as other towns are kind of falling back on this. So a lot of kids come from other towns to play. Me and Mike talked here a couple weeks ago, kind of a 3-5 year plan, whatever, some things that are going to eventually need to be done. That parking lot up there, Kurt, right? We're parking in grass. Now, we just need to figure out, I guess, where high school football's practicing on our Legion field this year. So, I don't know, at some point, we'll have to do something there. And then the grandstand's going to fall down there. We're going to have to take it down sooner or later. We went and looked there the other day. Those are all supported by 8x8 beams. And termites have just torn them up. There's nothing holding about half. So,
Put your hand through.
yep. We did get a bid on that, real rough bid at $3,000 or $4,000 to take down all the way.
So for anyone that is really interested, and I know Joan, we've been through a lot of history there with Pride Field. Pride Field can't hold up anymore. It's a hurting place. Termites have now living their lives there.
Yeah. Yeah, they're rough. And we replaced a couple posts 2 or 3 years ago when Legion started up again, just to put a Band-Aid on it. But with our numbers we got, I don't see Legion going anywhere for a couple years. I mean, it's going to be around for, this year 6 and under boys, we had 34 kids playing baseball. So, all the way up to our 12 and under boys, which next year will be playing Junior Legion. Gosh, I think we're at 26 there too. So our numbers are good. Kids are excited about Legion. So, I don't know when, but in the near future, either a good strong breeze is going to blow it over, or we're going to haul it out. Somebody's going to have to. So,
Have you guys started getting bids on replacement bleachers?
we went up and looked. Bleachers, we think we're pretty good. The bleachers there are in really nice shape. It's just the structure around it. So if we could pull the bleachers out, tear that down, put the bleachers back, and then just come up with a shade of some sort. Whether that's, I don't know, some sort of shade. We don't really need that for storage anymore. There's nothing under there, so we don't need it. We'll need a shade of some sort. Like we said, I'm guessing we could sit 35 or 40 people on the bleachers that are there. But if you go to one of those ball games, everybody brings their own chair. So we don't need to provide seating for everybody. The idea, if we were ever to get to the point of host districts again, we talk to the school and maybe borrow a section of bleachers from the football field, move it over. I mean, that's the ideal plan if we get to that point again. So, the only other thing between the parking lot and that is that bathroom maybe sometime. The one attached to the concession stand, it's rough, but it's good. It's holding up. We had a really good year this year. Good improvements. So, I don't know. Got a lot of other youth sports coming under ball backers too. Trying to take care of all of them under one umbrella now. Youth volleyball for the girls, youth football for the boys, and then we're doing youth basketball at 3rd through
discussion action, special designated liquor license, Keystone Bar, 9/14/2019, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Yeah, 2 a.m. on the app and 2 p.m. on the, it is the 2 a.m.
Supposed to be
Long
11
one.
a.m. in the morning to 2, or, yeah, to 2 a.m.
Yeah,
The
I was
next
just
day.
clarifying, yeah.
2 p.m., you're gonna send them all home.
2 hours.
I know you said it was an evening football game, so yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And this is a benefit for,
What's that?
For the boy on a bicycle.
Yeah, it's a fundraiser for, Andrew Slater's son Connor, who got hit on the highway. He's, from what I hear, he's doing really well, they were planning on him coming home the 28th of August, now they're looking at the 20th of August. So Keystone Bar and Hot Rod Association and River Mill Express are all pulling together to do we wanna do like a run, poker run, cruise run, whatever, however, I'm not really sure how we're gonna word that yet. And we're gonna do silent auction, we're gonna do food, River Mill's coming in to play for free, doing donations, passing the bucket, free will donation on the food, 50/50 raffle, a silent auction just to help raise money. Kendra's been coming home, trying to come home a couple days a week, trying to keep her, job going and stuff, but it's been kinda tough, so. Gotta pull together on how we can and try to help out what we can, so that's what I think I'm crazy or not, but I've been Googling the weather. As of right now, it's supposed to be 76 on the 14th of September, and I'm really praying that that's right. Because it's a night game, and if we can have the music outside and the night game inside, then life is golden. So, that's what I'm asking.
we're gonna shut down the street in front like we did for
By
Foundation.
Madison in between, yeah. And it'll be from the alley to the stop sign, usually.
Same thing with the snow fence and the semi and everything then.
Yeah, but we're gonna do the semi in the back and I'm gonna do cattle guard in the front. Just easier to,
Sure.
I got some aluminum, aluminum cattle guards that people have at MRP ready for setting up. Pulling a truck in there and we're good,
Probably lighter,
Mhm.
yeah, so,
but stronger than snow fence.
yeah, it is. So that's why I'm asking to get your blessing that I can do this.
I'll make a motion to, pass a special designated liquor license for September the 14th from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. on September the 15th.
I'll second.
Second. Pam, Julie,
Aye.
myself, Bob. Motion passes.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Actually, while you're up there, I just wanna personally apologize for my incorrect statement that I made in June about you guys getting, funds. I was thinking of the liquor license when you guys come in, so my apologies for that.
Number 10, discussion action, community cleanup day, September 21st and 22nd.
Courtney, you'll tell you all about it. We got them coming up, that's what she wants to tell you, and Courtney is like that, she is a calendar guru. So this is why it's on your agenda. I'd probably wait until next month, 2 days before the event, and then try to promote it, but she's got it written down, so it's our fall cleanup. Just making you aware of it, we'll be advertising it, it's free to the residents. We try to do what we can with the C&D and the transfer, and recycling, of course, we'll try to set some hours there as well, above and beyond the Monday through Friday. So just a chance to clean up. We used to do it once a year, and now we do it twice a year, and we tried all sorts of things, but I think we like this.
Is there gonna be a list of items that are not accepted?
There are, yes,
It'll be like your.
in the newspaper and.
Yeah.
Right.
Are you gonna advertise somewhere else? Because some people don't read that newspaper.
It'll be on your next bill.
Good.
So read the bottom of your
Everybody
bill.
gets a
You don't get a bill.
Read your bill.
Will they be accepting, will you be putting in there what they will be accepting and what they won't?
Only what they want, everything else is
Or what
garbage.
they won't?
It's
Okay.
usually one or the other, but yes, and the signs out on each C&D site, as well as the transfer, have a big sign, what's acceptable and what's not. The biggest question we usually have is, electronics and, some of the hazardous
Tires,
ones.
batteries.
Tires.
Paint, right, no paint. My question is, do we pay for it?
No, it's free.
It's free, oh gosh,
Probably just
okay.
one pickup load then, right, for
Because I've
family.
got a neighbor that's got all kinds of stuff laying around in front of her house, and new neighbor on the corner of my house has got new stuff. They were
You
made
gotta
in.
convince them that it needs to go.
That would be the time.
One neighbor's trash is another's treasure, right?
Well, their treasurer is driving me nuts.
That's why you go introduce yourself and say, hey, we're
I
having
know,
a
I
cleanup
introduced
day.
myself to the one next door, but the new neighbor, I haven't met.
We got 6 weeks or so to do it. Number
Oh,
11,
yeah.
discussion
Oh, yeah.
action resolution number 586, municipal annual certification and program compliance 2019. That is basically about the streets, right, that you have to do it on a 6-year. Yeah.
Yep.
This is where we get the funding that we need, or would like to get.
That's what it is. Your highway allocation that we talked about quite a bit.
Which, if you weren't here at that gap paving meeting the last time I was on the council, Osmond did not do this, and we got their money, so we definitely want to do this.
Can you tell me more about the gap paving? I'm kind of messed up about that.
Well,
We've had several meetings about that. I'll talk to you about it afterwards.
Okay, great.
thank you.
Love to help.
Resolution is, just a one-time vote, motion and second and one-time passage.
I'll make a motion to pass resolution number 586.
Bob? Myself, aye. Julie?
Aye.
Pam? Okay. We will be getting the check in the mail. Discussion action gap paving of city streets. Do you want to say any more about?
Unless somebody has any questions, I think that's, put to bed for tonight. If you have a question, that's great. And keep coming down and getting updates as you can. It's not, it's not moving right now. I've got a lot of things on my plate, so it's there. I mean, we had to bring it up, and I think we had a good gap paving discussion with many of the residents. I think you voiced your opinion to the council people. I thought that was well done. It was a very good meeting, one of the better meetings I've ever been at, so. Go from there, it can come
on
up.
YouTube yet, or is that on the web? Is that, like, you would film that meeting, is it uploaded on YouTube?
I'm not sure for the, it's recorded for sure.
Can you check, will you check on that later? Thank you very much.
Question was brought up at the school board meeting. I don't know if anybody was there last night, but I kind of got thrown under the bus a little bit, which is okay. Supposedly, I said that it is the highway or the road between the ball fields was my priority overall. I think if the facts would come out, what I've always said, just so everybody understands, there's a 1 and 6 year plan. On the 1 year plan is the road between the ball fields, and then also the road we talked about with Kurt. Those are on the 1 year plan. The rest of them are all on the 6 year plan. So my priority or prioritizing, yes, on the 1 year plan would be those, but not one over the other. Not telling anyone what's going on, just that if you're gonna budget for it, those are the ones we have to look at first. So, I know that was brought up last night.
Number 13, are we discussing
Where's 13?
the dog ordinance?
Absolutely. Half the people here are here to talk to you about the dog
Number
ordinance.
13, discussion enforcement of dog ordinance added 8/8/2019.
Yes, I was concerned after reading, well, I heard about the dog incident and everything. My concern is that this dog, this is the second time that it's bitten someone or attacked someone, and it's still not licensed within the city. Why would that not happen? I don't understand. Where's the letdown at, where this doesn't get followed through? I mean, and is it a vicious dog? Who decides it's a vicious dog? I guess if it's attacked a dog for $1,000 worth, it should be labeled a vicious dog. And therefore, it has to be secured in an enclosed lock pen and warning signs, and I don't see any of that. What happens?
in right there, that's it.
Yeah, so why is that not being, why is that so hard to enforce?
You know, I'm looking at this, what happens if I'm over in the park with my grandkids, and that dog is over there, and my grandkids get attacked? You know who I'm gonna go after? It's not gonna be those people that own the dog, because they don't have anything, I'm gonna come after the city.
Yep, and they're actually right next to the school.
Exactly
Well, and
right.
this is the same dog I talked to Chief Yost about last fall, because it was chasing the pastor's kids. You know, and I went down and personally talked to them. They called the Pierce County Department, and I recommend doing that. Called the Pierce County Police. But that was last year when that was happening. I don't know what happened.
For what it's worth, and I'd rather agree with you on the enforcement issues. It's not supposed to be my primary duty. I can come in as backup if I get that instruction from the council. But with the chasing last year and the threatening of kids, and I've interviewed some people myself, that happened. That classifies the dog as a dangerous dog. Now, the dog has attacked the dog, the little one, and required large vet bills. The code says if a dangerous dog attacks and causes injury requiring vet bills, the animal will be apprehended by the Plainview police and destroyed. And that's what, it doesn't say lock it up, not after that.
No,
Had no
it doesn't
chance.
say anything.
No. And Bruce, we sat on that committee for, what, 2 years ago?
And the ordinance.
It's been a lot of hours.
Pretty tightly.
Yes.
So how many
So that's why
chances, excuse me, how many chances does this dog get? And with school starting, you've got kids going to that school, going back and forth on the bikes. I mean, what are we waiting for? It needs to be done tomorrow.
And then
I
like
am
to say,
surprised
the
that
dog
you
out
got
of
out
the
of the yard
house.
with all the junk that's in there.
Well, now they have a pallet fence, that's their fencing.
Oh, that's a fancy.
That's
And
their
that's gonna
fencing.
do that dog.
And
I
that's
never
not my
authorized that
ordinance.
either.
I think,
I never authorized that pallet fence.
Martindale's are here
Yeah.
to
The dog
discuss.
that was attacked was actually ours,
Do you wanna, yeah.
and I have pictures.
Thank you guys, by the way, for coming all the way.
This is Lexi before the attack. This is Lexi after the attack. She had almost $1,000 in vet bills. And also, Matt had to miss a day of work, he had to come home from work trip, so the actual cost between mileage for everything was closer to $2,000 by the time you figure everything out, which is definitely not a small amount. We did contact the owners. Matt called them, and he was very polite. And then that's the other side. And then I also do have pictures. This is the front of the enclosure that is built as well. And then this is the back, none of which meet the standards. And you guys can, I mean, if anybody wants to stand here, free to look at those as well. Sorry if anybody is sensitive.
No,
I'm not. Yeah, you may not want to look at that. Pictures of the dogs. But Matt did call the owners and politely, tried to, say, arrange payment for the bill. He even called them with, because we actually volunteer for dog rescue, we've spent the last few years volunteering for dog rescue, so we would prefer that the dog be rehomed, as opposed to destroyed, because it's not the dog's fault, it almost is never the dog's fault. And so, he called for the number of a rescue in Sioux City that might have been able to provide resources, and the owner was, the owner was rude.
She was, she offered no apology.
Didn't ask how Lexi was.
Yeah. And she was just
Her comment was,
defensive.
yeah, her comment was the dog's not aggressive, that's just what dogs do, and that happens here all the time.
I don't think we can afford to let that happen.
No, I think the dog should have been removed.
The dog should be removed.
Months and months ago, after not just the first one, but the second one. That has been on.
Example, I found this online, was put this way as mascot. It was an over $1 million settlement in a lawsuit. The very last sentence says the dog, the animal had attacked other people and animals previously. So it's definitely opening up the city for liability.
Oh, definitely. owners were supposed to cover everything. So has there been any follow-up? See if the dog's still there? Yeah, who's gonna be?
Any calling? Any calling?
I have
Somebody on the phone?
a pit bull next door at my house. And it belongs to her son. And he's visiting, so he's moving in. And although the dog is friendly and doesn't bother our cats, it did come up behind me. I was going in my house and it was quiet, I didn't hear it. And I looked back and I said, "Hi, Ratchet," and I went to pet it and it growled at me and I thought, okay, this is not, I'm not gonna let it. And then again, another time, I was getting my dog food, our dog was still Grove Lake, and he came back and we had took the big, our other troll, one of our trolls, and I took the littlest one, and Ratchet came over to the truck, out of the yard, he's never leashed. And, he come around the passenger side, I had, TJ's only 8 pounds, 5 to 8 pounds, he's really small. And he was very interested in TJ. So I held TJ up close to me like this, you know, to get in the house. Cause I didn't know how he would react.
If that owner of the dog would move.
She, rather.
If
Pardon me?
if the owner of the dog would move into the city limits, they wouldn't have to follow the dangerous dog ordinance that was passed, which includes, you know, going to the city office, paying the,
Right.
providing,
Proper kennel and
providing-
insurance.
yeah. And then
Right.
they would need
So-
to look at the fence, make sure that everything's followed through.
I was under the impression that he was moving, not visiting. So I don't know what the situation really is.
But you're gonna solve detail.
Right.
Here,
Right.
Right.
You're gonna have to figure out what you want to do for a procedure to solve the problem. You wanna have a special meeting and meet with the police and call into question on enforcement. You certainly can do that. I've told you before, and I've told some members of the public here, I can prosecute these things without the police, but that's not how it's supposed to work.
Why do we need to have a special meeting when it says here in the ordinance that the dog needs to be removed from the
Well,
city?
I think on this question of this dog, it's quite clear that they're supposed to go pick up the dog and have it
And
destroyed.
get it destroyed immediately?
But you gotta talk to somebody and get that done.
Right, that's what I'm saying, who's gonna talk to you? Mike, is that you, or is it?
If you look under, I've never done this, and I talked to the mayor about this, but it's not mine, but if you look under section code, chapter 1, 208, or something like that, Bruce can bring it up in that. I've stayed out of it, but the city administrator is actually in charge of all departments. You want the dog gone tomorrow, I can have the dog gone tomorrow.
She's never bitten anybody, she's been relatively.
I think they're
friendly.
No, we're talking about-
This other dog, I see, okay. And
It's really the council, I've stayed out of, I don't get involved in civil service. You find out throughout the state and throughout the country, battles between administrators and police do not go well. It's not my cup of tea, but it is in the code, very specifically, all departments, except for civil service, it shall be in charge of all departments.
I think it needs to be removed immediately, especially with school starting on Thursday and children playing in the playground right across from the street. Yeah, that's just my opinion, but
Our record of licensing, just for the sake of in data and stuff, you can sugarcoat it all you want, our record for licensing in the city is atrocious. There are more out there that are dangerous dogs that are not licensed. I'm not blaming the police, it's not their job, but from the owner's point of responsibility and accountability, we sit with a town that is just loaded with dogs on the dangerous list and not a care in the world. Nobody has part wolves running around. We sent one down the other day that was a lovely dog, but it was part wolf and smelled and everything else. These things shouldn't happen. They just should not happen.
Well, and that's why I was pushing so much for it 2 years ago, to try and just remove them, and then problem solved.
And it's not just pit bulls, it's other animals as well.
It behooves me, well, bewilders me is a better word, and it happened, and I can't do anything about it now, Bruce Curtis, unless you guys decided, but where in God's green earth is a mastiff not on a dangerous dog list? I know we had to do a cutoff somewhere, but that is unbelievable to me.
The list says, and any other dog bearing the same characteristics, so the dog could be on the list.
Okay.
Very much so.
My question
But
would
the
also.
owner has to be notified and taken care of.
My question would also be, whose job is it to make sure that these dogs get licensed? I mean, you're just taking the word of the people that, I mean, we know this dog wasn't licensed, so how come they didn't get fined? And if they didn't pay the fine, then the city attorney sends them a letter and prosecutes them.
They did get fined.
Did they pay it? After
Oh,
Lexi
I
was
thought
there.
I asked about that
But not with the
earlier.
previous
No, they're not licensed, but they did get fined.
So why weren't they licensed after the
You mean
first
they got
initial
fined?
incident?
$50 for this dog.
But that's not,
Loose dog,
What about the
nothing about a dangerous dog,
No,
No.
fencing or anything like that.
well, that's not being fined for not being licensed. They're not being fined for not being licensed,
How many
correct?
years ago, when it first happened to the pastor's children, or, I mean, why wasn't that?
That's not a question for me.
Right, I'm just asking.
I just take the money, I don't question who gets fined and who gets.
Yeah, I would ask that too. Why wasn't the dog, at the time of the fine, why wasn't he forced to pay the license fees? To make sure they had insurance, to go check to make
If
sure.
you read the ordinance, you get 30 days, I believe.
Okay,
For the
30
kind
days
of being a
passed.
dangerous dog to get insurance and get licensed.
Okay, it's
And if
within
they
30
don't,
days.
And if they don't, then you can,
If they don't, then they've broken the law.
But
If they've broken the law, then they're supposed to receive a citation from the police department,
there we go.
which then gets turned over for prosecution. The county won't prosecute a dog offense, it would have to be turned over to me. I think you will find that the police department turns very little over to me. But that's something the council has to enforce if they're gonna do something about it.
I just can't think, all the time that the policemen drive around town, they have to know who have dogs, the majority, and who don't. Go to the city, look at the list who's paid, okay, these people have dogs, they need tickets. I mean, there's a miscommunication, or somebody's not doing their job, because this is not rocket science.
Well, I would add that from an Omaha perspective, where the Humane Society is very strict about everything, they are black and white to a T, they follow the ordinances. Granted, there's lots of people that don't license their dogs, but if you're caught, it's a very stiff fine. If you license your dogs, if you vaccinate your dogs, if you follow the proper laws, it's actually rather expensive to own a dog. And that kind of limits your population of who's gonna go to the bother of paying for the license, paying for the vaccinations. That means you're gonna have responsible owners who, regardless of whether it's a Mastiff or a Pit Bull, or what kind of breed it is, because the rescue we volunteer for rescues all breeds. And Mastiffs are very popular. They come in, they get adopted immediately because people love them. Because if you treat them right and you take care of them, they're good dogs. But you have to follow the rules. You have to have that threshold of where people have to license them. People have to take care of it. People have to show responsibility in order to have a dog in the city limits.
Well,
And
they
that's
should-
gonna reduce your high risk right there.
Right, they should have also been issued a ticket for, as far as this ordinance, any person, firm, or legal entity violating the terms of this section shall be fined in a sum not to exceed $500. I mean, that should have been enforced too. I'm just saying, when you talk to Jerry about removing the animal from the property immediately, also give them a fine for not following this.
Do you know when the ticket was moved?
Off the top of my head, no.
Do they have other dogs as well, besides the Mastiff?
I think they have a baby mastiff,
Both of them?
puppy mastiff.
I think the
And-
people that have Mastiff have some small dog. I talked with the teachers at the Lutheran church, and they said the small dog is out lots, but they don't call about it anymore.
They don't know if
Doesn't
it'll
work
be
much,
done.
it just runs at large.
They had a Mastiff prior to the census actually bit another person in the face and caused some major issues there. Did not pay for the medical bills. Their solution was to shoot the dog.
This was apparently prior, this is what we were told, when my dad was told by the neighbors. This is prior to when they lived in town, when they lived in the country. So this is a pattern.
About 2 years ago.
So it's not,
It's a pattern.
it's not the
The owners,
dog.
the dog.
Brian,
Yes.
I have loved dogs from day one, and I think most people around here have enjoyed their animals. But when it comes to the point of a dog doing what this one is doing, are you gonna wait until he does this to a child and you have to have that on your conscience? I think you better be doing something and do it now.
I'll just say that Michelle is my classmate, and I honestly did not know about it until I read her letter to the editor, like a lot of you. That's the first I ever actually knew about this. So just because we get reports from the police, we don't know everything on this.
So the solution to this problem
Is to get rid of the dog if it's not already
who is gonna do that?
the police department.
Who's gonna tell the police department?
Is it true that the mayor has to tell the police department what to do?
If you go by, if you read, yes, Vicki, I mean, truly, the way this is what caused some of the consternation tonight is the mayor has appointment rights, and every year he appoints or reappoints based on term, chief of police, city administrator, and the city clerk. Other than that, it's usually, in small towns like this, it's left up to the mayor to somewhat follow through and be the employer to speak. There's also, like I said, in the code book where the city administrator reports back to the mayor, but also can take all departments. And but I've always shied away from the police department. In this case with the dog, I don't see another choice. I'm tired of it. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm tired of, but these dogs in general. I was in a rescue organization for 20 years. I know where you're coming from. I mean, I had another life before this. So I love dogs. But I also know when a dog's got to go, the dogs have got to go. And even in a rescue organization, if they are not able to be rehomed, as you speak of, sometimes you just have to do the inevitable. And I've been there and had to do that. You just can't save everyone.
Oh, and I know there's been instances in town where dogs have been removed, taken out to the country, and then they come back into town. And this is something that, no.
And you also need to ensure that they're not just gonna go get another dog and do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, if the owners have never made them pay a penalty, then they don't care. It's kind of like telling your kid, don't draw on the wall. Eventually, you have to enforce that, or they just keep drawing on the wall. And if the owners don't have to pay a penalty, then they're not going to comply. And as I've said, if the council wants to tell me to bypass the police, investigate this stuff myself, and do the prosecution, I can do that. But it's certainly not how it's supposed to happen.
I didn't know.
But I think Bruce should probably work with the police to take action on this. Or somebody to do the responsibility, and I put down 2 dogs myself because I thought they were threat.
Need to speak up a little bit.
So that owners are not taking responsibility of their own dogs. I think it should be important.
I put down my own dogs, I thought were a threat.
I think there still has to be accountability for the other dogs, not just this threat of a dog, but the other ones that the police or whoever does not make them register and show that they get shots. And then if they don't register, you give them a letter and they don't pay it, then you turn over Bruce and it's a court matter.
Right,
I mean,
right.
like I said, this needs to be done.
We have a minor way of enforcing the running at large thing, which is what Courtney was talking about.
Right.
On the first citation for running at large, the thought was, well, maybe don't drag them to Pierce and go
I did print off a few of the pages from the Omaha ordinance, including one regarding the reckless owner, if you're interested in those.
Absolutely.
A few things that I noticed weren't in the Plainview ordinance, but
Bear in mind, Rita, she just
I just
brought
asked
that up.
Brian that.
and this is the full ordinance.
I thought somebody said in town here that they had a dog and it got picked up, they took it to Pier, or maybe they got fined. Then the next time it got picked up and they had to pay $500 to get it out from Pierce. Of course, they couldn't, these people couldn't pay $500, so the dog stayed in Pierce. How come this dog didn't ever, I mean, if it was chasing 2 years ago, how come it didn't go down to Pierce? And they should, you know, maybe they got fined $500 or they couldn't get the dog until they paid the $500. I mean, how come we can't do that?
How come we can't
profile some of these people? It's not a very nice thing to do, but it seems like the dogs that give us the most problems are the people that have the least responsibility, the least amount of ability to pay for them, the least responsibility for anything, including their home, their yard, their kids. It's not nice to profile, but that is what has to be done. And sometimes you just have to say, sorry, you can't have one.
The preliminary step is the police recognize that they're breaking the law and they give them a citation. Unless I said, as I said.
So the mayor has to tell the city, is
It's
that?
the law that the police are supposed to
Well,
enforce
I
the
get
law.
that part, but
But if nobody sees to it, apparently it's not happening.
So the somebody is the mayor, right? Is that what we're agreeing in? The somebody is the mayor?
Well, the mayor or the council is ultimately able to supervise. Remember, the council sets the pay. Perhaps you weren't in the room when I mentioned it a couple of months ago, but you cut someone's pay by 50%, they pay more attention.
Sounds like a circle to me. Circle of nothing.
So the conclusion is,
Well, that was what I was bringing up earlier.
Nothing happens.
I think they need to have maybe a joint meeting. I mean, you put it just on Mike, and then Mike talks to the police, and I don't know that that gets it done. Do you want the whole council to talk to the police? Your call.
I'd be okay with it, but this dog needs to be
Yeah,
removed
there's
immediately.
something.
There's no excuses on this one.
No, there's
It
not.
needs, we need to have a conference call or something with Jerry
Absolutely.
tomorrow morning. I can definitely put that into my schedule.
There's no reason why you can't, on the record, once again, this way it's recorded, ask for it to be recorded in the minutes, that the council wishes for this particular dog to be removed from the city of Plainview based upon violation of the ordinance immediately. And then there's no question.
And not to be returned. Yeah. And a fine being written for the $500.
That's up to you. I'm saying.
I think we need to follow the ordinance that's in the book.
And you need to use the word or destroyed.
I will have that in the minutes to have this done immediately tomorrow before school starts. Just most of it, it's already chased after how many people, bit a kid, taken out a dog. I'm sorry, but I just want to take a chance that even if it's moved to another property, that it's going to hurt somebody else.
No, that's not even acceptable.
That's what, yeah.
Not ask them nicely, please move
Right.
your dog.
No,
Right.
that's
Take the
unacceptable.
dog.
I just worry about somebody else
Destroyed
getting
is the
hurt.
only option, I think. Taking it to another property is not acceptable.
That is correct.
There needs to be a conference call in the morning. I'd sit in on it if we need to, but I think it needs to be done. Okay. Are you gonna talk to
Are
Jerry?
you making a motion?
I'm making a motion to, have Jerry contact the owner effective first thing tomorrow morning.
And pick up the dog.
Confiscate the dog.
Yep.
That'd be my motion.
Bob? Julie?
Aye.
Myself, aye. And once again, I honestly did not know about this until I read your letters. We don't know. The community may think we get a full report, but that's the first I heard that it had been.
Which is another question that we had too, because we actually asked for police reports for the first 2 incidents involving the dog, and then also the police report involving our incident for our own purposes, because we did file a claim in small things, because again, if they don't have to pay for any consequences, they're just going to keep doing it.
Right.
And we were denied copies of those reports, including one that was ours that we were involved in. And we don't understand. And I actually sent that down to Douglas County Sheriff's offices about a mile from our house. I sent it down there yesterday and said, just go ask for a random police report. And we can go down there and get a police report on anybody, even though we're not, unless it's a sensitive case that they don't want to release information on. Any completed police report, we can go down there, even if we're not involved, and pay $10 to get a copy of it.
Who told you that you can have copies of this?
Chief Yostin. And so we just didn't understand why we weren't able to get a copy of the police report that was done, especially on the one that was our dog and our expense was involved and Dad was involved, so.
Bruce, is that something that our city does not allow?
As far as I'm concerned, they should have the reports. I don't know why they couldn't.
You let it. Well, but even the reports from 2 years ago, I think, is what they were looking for, the report with the child being bit. I think they just wanted to.
For what it's worth, you mentioned, and someone else mentioned, this dog had bit somebody another time. I think that's mistaken. I talked with the minister's wife, because I wanted to know the facts as best I could. And she told me their son and his little friend, about a year and a half ago, were approached and threatened and frightened and climbed to the top of the swing set and screamed for help, and received help from adults and chased the dog away, but they weren't bitten by this dog.
There was actually another incident around July 4th, they couldn't remember the exact day, where it was a 20-year-old disabled, they call him Kid, but he's 20, and he was actually he's a neighbor to the property. Apparently the owner called him over to come over to the property. The kid rode his bike onto the property and the dog went up and bit him. I actually talked to the mother on Monday.
This is not the minister.
No, this is not the minister.
Okay,
No, I talked to the mom on Monday and
another incident I'm not aware of.
Yeah, the bite actually broke the skin and left, she said, a really bad bruise that required medical treatment. They cleaned it, they didn't stitch it or anything, but it did require medical treatment. And that was the July, it was around July 4th, they weren't sure of the exact date.
Apparently no citation then either that we know of. There was nothing.
They were told that the dog was vaccinated after that, they were told the dog was licensed at that point, and the dog was not.
Never was.
No.
Yeah, afterwards, does it make any difference?
Thank you for passing them on.
You're very welcome.
I'm sorry, you guys had.
Yeah, I too.
Any other comments on that?
Number 14, discussion budget workshops for the 2019-2020 fiscal year.
Well, I gave you all the information. I didn't bring my book tonight, coming up. I left it back in my office. Don't really need it that much, only Courtney takes care of me. The main thing I want you guys to take a look at in general tonight, just quickly, is be aware of your 18-19 actual listing. Courtney and I are trying to watch as we complete our year that we are relatively close to department to department, because you don't want to be over. I think I've said this to you many times, that in municipal law, it is really bad to be over, it is really bad to be under. So there is no peace. You just simply have to be close to the budget. Now, if you're too far under, then they know that there's something up. So you look at 18-19, even going from the administration, it looks like we're going to be a little bit over for the transfers, but not bad. But if you look at the salaries, there's a amount that you put in suit coming out of the administration, so that's general fund. So instead of being the budget of 36, we're having quite a bit more come out of it. Same way goes if you look, and I'm just randomly just going over here, and I don't wanna go too much because we wanna set our dates, but, police is about right straight on. You know what the auditor said about the police budget in the past. Handy bus budget, same, everything's coming in really close to 100%. You will see some things like the water budget. You want to go there, and I think that's a really good one to look at. As soon as I find it, you find your water budget, you'll look at the revenue anticipated. And I anticipate usually every year, it's like clockwork, right around 180,000. This particular water sales, and I looked at it and I've updated it since I got some newer numbers with the July. So I think we're going to be closer to 150 to 155. Some people are watering, and so the revenue is going to get a little bit closer. You see, I've got it listed at 144. That's a $40,000 shot. And when you're depending on the revenue stream, and right now it's on water and sewer, guiding what's going on in this town, that's significant. So you either have to do a couple of things. You have to look at your rates, and if they're not keeping up, change them, which is what we talked about earlier, or you have to sit there and look at where you can cut. Obviously we're down from 6 staff down to 4 staff down to, like Kurt would say, Ken and Troy. So, and Russ, and we got Russ driving the truck, but I mean, our staff is right now almost bare bone. I'm not gonna really go over much, I'll let you guys take a look at it. Most all the rest of them are doing fairly well. They were budgeted to lose a little bit. We had some in the C&D site, but we had some unexpected outlays. Anytime you have unexpected outlays, you sit there and try to figure out where that's gonna come in. And the auditor will tell you these things too, and they'll say, listen, you've got a $3.5 million budget, or whatever the budget may be, and you come in at $3.5 million and 100,000. So you don't want to panic because you're only 100,000 off in there, but you want to know where. So that's the budget process. With that being said, I'll stop because I think we've had enough tonight. But you do need to have the budget meetings because this is the most important month, this month and through September, in my mind, of the city.
Right.
So if you could free up your calendar, that would be great. And let me know, or if however works, we can set it right now.
Tuesdays work the best. Some Mondays are Wednesdays.
If we can do 3 of them, then you're not pushing me to get out of there like with 2 hours. I mean, 2 hours minimum. I would say 6 hours is what I need. So if you can get 3 meetings, 2 hours each, I can do that.
Okay.
Or 2 meetings, 3 hours each. Or 1
And you
meeting,
want
just
these
an all-day
done?
retreat.
By the way.
You should be passing it at your September council meeting,
Yeah.
right, it's due to the state by the 20th.
Okay.
Does the next 3 Tuesdays work for,
That's what I was thinking.
The next 3 Tuesdays?
I'm just asking to see what,
And if we happen to get further along than we think, that's great. We can always release a little bit early, at least we get started. All the evaluations are done. Julie, we have all the recorded scores. Oh, did you get it?
No, okay, okay. So Bob can do the next 2.
and then what time would you work for everybody? 5:30, 6:30?
In this case, earlier the better. I mean, really for you guys. It's up to you,
Right.
so that we can get it done.
6 is the best for me, so not because I'm
Right,
such a rush
right.
to get that off work, but I don't know, does that work for you? Pam, does that work for you?
And Bob, if you can't make them, it's not unusual to have a council person every
I
year.
could be late.
That's okay.
What time works best for you?
Anytime it's a couple of days, so I can just sit there.
Okay,
And get off work.
okay.
So for sure the next 2 Tuesdays at 6.
Do the,
Can you repeat that, Ryan?
What's
Can
that?
you speak up?
Oh, sorry, the next 2 Tuesdays at 6 PM budget workshops
Here.
for the fiscal year.
Regardless, let's do it this way. We will advertise them no matter what as a public meeting, because it is a public meeting for
Right.
everyone to come to. If we don't have quorum, you're not passing anything, the workshop still continues.
Right. Which has happened in the past.
That they're here.
Yeah, I think, I don't think we ever go to the other place. We'll have to ask
I have to ask
Dawn.
Yeah.
If she got stuff scheduled, because she only has me blocked out for this Tuesday.
So if it's available, otherwise we'll go to the other place if it's breathable and all that kind of stuff.
Or on the break table.
Yeah, I mean, we can make it work, no matter what. We can actually, we've done it before in restaurants and things like that too, so.
But for sure, the next 2 Tuesdays at 6 p.m.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for speaking up.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
What family?
I haven't even seen her for a while. City attorney comments.
I don't have anything else unless you have a discussion on how you're gonna proceed with dog enforcement issues in the city. How to manage one dog.
Right.
The whole town.
You're absolutely correct. But we will be leaving you, we're gonna, Julie has an idea, Michelle had made a copy about, how you gonna say, yeah, owners, to use Corinne's words, about the owners not being allowed to own a dog.
Change the ordinance.
Change the
possibly
ordinance,
for
yeah.
business owners.
If you can fit that in your busy schedule.
I have another topic.
Sure. Council comments?
I have one on a dog situation. He calls in about a dog.
I think it depends on what number they call.
They call ours, I don't call them.
I was just wondering how we can be more aware of those type of calls.
It should.
We have gone to, we don't transfer any calls, we don't really call 3,400. It just keeps us out of it.
Delays on their call.
Yep, and then it's on their call line.
I just want to reiterate what Kim mentioned earlier, that if we're not enforcing these ordinances, whether it's the police officers, administration, us as city council, it's just opening us up to liability. So, I think we all just need to be more mindful about that.
Public comments?
Mark, you comfortable? I know you and I had a talk, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you certainly have an opinion and a voice, and I respect it.
No, I think maybe the first step is to address this one here. Take the next step on enforce it. That's kind of what I picked up out of the conversation today. We had a separate conversation a week ago, but and it was kind of more on, one of the subjects was covering the concept of conflict of interest. I'm not too sure everybody, we all have a good handle on what conflict of interest is. So I was just concerned that sometimes that we might kind of reveal what it really is. And so maybe perhaps trying to review what that is among the meeting members, so you can kind of be on the same page.
Remember, for whatever it is from a philosophical standpoint, there's 2 or 3 pages in the city code on what constitutes conflict of interest and what you have to do.
Right.
It's quite clear,
Yeah, and it's usually what around financial,
mostly.
sense, right?
Absolutely.
But that doesn't keep somebody from expressing opinion or things about something that doesn't relate to financial. So, I just wanted, it's just kind of maybe review that so you know what the rules of engagement are perhaps. And everybody can maybe perhaps can express their thoughts without feeling that they're gonna get hit from somebody else by keeping them quiet because it's not always, not necessarily what they're after. That's only my input, I guess.
Thank you.
Well, I would just talk about, since you're having cleanup days and we've had ordinances about unlicensed vehicles, we've talked that, did in effect in the water. I don't know how you explain to someone what is junk and not tidy. If you could ever figure that out, you'd all get a raise, I'm pretty sure. It's hard to tell somebody, you look like crap. But you have to do it sometime and now and again. Who is gonna do that? I don't know. But we've talked at length in economic development, Susan, about our town looking unkept.
Different a bunch of properties.
I got
You got
the
that list, okay.
two of them, one of them's not even there, but, the
Well,
other two-
I would hope that they don't take care of things because they don't know. I would give them that credit first. That's about as far as I go, but
I
I would
think
give
you're
them that
being a little
credit.
generous.
That's
No,
all.
we deal with it all the time, to be honest. I mean, I spend a lot of time with fellow city administrators all over Nebraska, and now getting to be more across the US too. And I've told you this before, and I'm gonna tell you again, the number one issue of all small rural communities, bar none, is nuisance houses. So everybody thinks that they got a handle on it, but we
You're
gotta
certainly
keep working.
trying to help them.
I know.
It's free. I don't know why they don't take advantage of it, but they don't.
We just tore down one, we're trying to get rid of another one here pretty
I'm
quick.
not about the people that actually still live in those houses.
I know.
With the junky yards,
Yeah.
driveways packed.
What they do inside their house, that's their business. So when I have to drive by it, whether it's on a paved street or not, doesn't have to have some junk in it. That's just my thought. If you could figure that out, I'd be really happy.
And it's all about the money, right? There's only so much money in.
I don't think it costs one single thing to pick up junk.
No, you're right. You're absolutely.
What I don't understand is if you don't have any money, how did you get that junk? That's what I don't
That's a
understand.
really good. And then I would, we'd all be righteous if we figured that one. You're right.
Any other comments?
Any other public comments?
Motion to dismiss.
Second. All in favor? Thank you again for coming, and the next two Tuesdays at 6 o'clock budget workshop.